Today we're exploring the question, how do I manage and balance the risks and rewards of using my data? Because on the one hand, there are the risks, potential downsides, these terrible things that can happen. And on the plus side, there are these amazing benefits. So what actions can I take, and how should I balance the risks and rewards? Now, one of the most useful frameworks that I've come across that talk to these risks and rewards puts it in this framework of offense versus defense. And it's from an HBR article from 2017 from Delamule and Davenport. And it's simple, it's straightforward, and it's incredibly effective. Now, what they focus on is that there's the defense. So defense is your data needs to be correct, it needs to be secure, and it needs to be compliant. So defense, it's got to be correct, secure, and compliant. So, well, that sounds great, except what are you going to use that data for? So then there's the offense side. Well, it's just going to be useful. We got to create value. We're going to increase profitability. But if it's not secure, if you're outside of compliance, if it's not correct, there are major issues. There are major risks as well. And so the goal of defense is to minimize risk, and the goal of offense is to maximize value. And we're going to need both defense and offense to successfully balance this risk-rewards trade-off. Now, the author's point is that we need to focus on both. We need offense and defense. On the offense side, as we've discussed in other videos, we need to be using this data for decision-focused data analysis. If not, what's the point? If it's not going to move the needle, then we have all this data. We should just chuck it. We should just get rid of it, wipe the servers, be done with it. Because there's literally no point in keeping it if it's not actually changing anything. Now, there might be compliance reasons or whatever to keep it, but everything else, there has to be this purpose of actually keeping it. And the second one is defense. Why do we need to focus on defense? Well, we have to maintain integrity and trust. I mean, imagine if you just create this awesome model that does these great things, but then you've leaked your customer data for whatever reason, and because of improper defense when you were deploying this, and now all of your corporate customers' information is for sale on the dark web somewhere. You've destroyed the integrity and trust of your company at that point, and you've destroyed value. It doesn't make sense to throw away dollars to pick up dimes. Now, on one side there's the offense, on the other's defense. In reality, both are really, really, really hard. I know it's easy for someone on offense to say that defense is easy or vice versa, but in reality, both are hard. I just want to give two different examples. I mean, one is if you talk to people on the defensive end, and they're talking off the record, a lot of the time they'll say, it's only a matter of time before, our defenses are breached to some extent. I'm not saying major extent, but to some extent, to some small scale, something. Just because defense is so hard to stay on top of every single way that someone could make it into your castle. I mean, people are tunneling in, people are shooting themselves over the wall, people are trying all sorts of things all the time. So how can we properly defend against everything, including technologies that we don't even know exist yet or don't exist yet? So it's very, very difficult. And on the opposite end, there are so many new things that are happening in offense, within machine learning or blockchain or whatever, new area that's gaining in popularity. You're looking around on offense, and it seems like everybody else is leaving you in the dust because you're reading their press releases, and they look amazing. And it's like, our company's going to become irrelevant, and we're going to go bankrupt because we've just been left behind. And so both defense and offense are incredibly difficult. And so it's not like we can just say, oh, well, defense or offense will just take care of itself. So which one should we emphasize, or how do we break down our efforts? 50-50, 70-30, 20-80? Well, it's going to depend on the risks and rewards. And the graphic that the authors provided is this data strategy spectrum that essentially we want to be leaning toward defense. If we're in a highly regulated environment, and data quality and protection are very, very important because we have very sensitive information about our clients, like a hospital. On the opposite end, you have retailers who say that they're less regulated, they don't really have as much sensitive personal data, and they need to react very quickly to the competition and market changes. They're going to be emphasizing offense a bit more than defense, but they're still going to need that defense. So this is just saying, emphasizing a little bit one more than the other. But again, we must focus on both. Otherwise, we're going to fall into a trap, either being left in irrelevance or breaking the integrity and breaking our own integrity and breaking the trust of our customers. Now, to provide an example of this, I wanted to show two opposite extremes of that spectrum with two different approaches. Now, one would be from, say, hospital perspective, let's say, is that the first thing they're going to say is, okay, data is properly defended. Now you people who want to use it for stuff, now have at it. But we're going to focus on defense first. And if the defense isn't in place, well, we can't use it. Now, there's some characteristics of that. Is it's very centralized data management. But as the defense matures and continues to improve, what is that going to lead to? It's going to lead to greater flexibility for the offensive side. Because on your defensive side, they're maturing, they're getting better and better at this, so they're making this information more readily available for offense as they get better and better at defense. Now take the opposite example. So this is how we will improve our competitive position. Like, we have to do this in order to survive as a company. Okay, defensive team, this is what we have to do. Now go defend this. Now, it's going to be a more decentralized data management approach, but that doesn't mean that there is no defense. It means that the defensive approach is going to be probably a bit more technically complicated, but it can be done and performed very, very, very well. Now, also, like just the opposite of example from before, as offense matures, then defense gets a better idea of what's needed for the company to survive and to succeed. What that creates, it creates a more streamlined approach for your defensive processes, because it's like, okay, we're getting a better understanding of what offense needs and what we need to do, and so we can improve and improve as the offensive side improves. And so, I mean, ideally, as things progress, and as you get better and better and better at this within your organization, that even though you're taking two different approaches initially, eventually when we get to that nirvana state, they're ideally going to look very similar to each other in the end. Not exactly the same, but similar in many respects. So our summary for today, we need to recognize that there are risks and rewards. And because of this, we need to focus on both offense and defense. Now, what's the proper balance between the two? Well, that's going to depend on your industry, your company, your competitive position, your regulatory environment, a lot of these other things. Once we properly understand those other elements, we can properly balance this offense-defense dynamic. But the glimmer of hope that we have, though, regardless of where you fall in that, is as offense or defense matures, that should lead to the increased capability of the other. Even though we're focusing primarily, say, on defense first or offense first, the other should improve as the other improves and matures. So that's this ray of hope that we have. And that's the summary for today.